The Old Testament contains 39 books, but these can be broken down into 5 divisions. Here they are: law, history, poetry, major prophets, minor prophets. There are 5 books of law, 12 books of history, 5 books of poetry, 5 major prophets, and 12 minor prophets. That's 5, 12, 5, 5, 12, for a total of 39. 5, 12, 5, 5, 12. Again, 5, 12, 5, 5, 12. And so, as you go through each division and work on memorizing the book names, at least you'll already know how many books are in each section. 5, 12, 5, 5, 12. 5 books of law, 12 books of history, 5 books of poetry, 5 major prophets, 12 minor prophets. All right, let's take a look at each division, one by one. The 5 books of law are Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. Again, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. These 5 books were all written by Moses, and they go together. Where one leaves off in the story, the next one starts. Genesis begins with the creation of the world. The very first verse in the Bible says, "In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth." That's Genesis 1, verse 1. In fact, the word Genesis means beginning. The opening pages of Genesis, the opening pages of the Bible, tell us about the origin of everything. And it even tells us something about the origin of God. He has no beginning. He is eternal. He always has been and always will be. Exodus is about the nation of Israel exiting Egypt. How they ended up in Egypt in the first place is the subject of the last part of Genesis. But the Exodus from Egypt is a watershed event in the history of the Israelite nation. You cannot underestimate its significance. And the events of the Exodus are recorded in the book of Exodus. Leviticus and Numbers are the 3rd and 4th books of Moses, and they continue the story of the Exodus. The 5th and final book of law is called Deuteronomy. Its title literally means second law. In it, Moses preaches about the entire law to the people just before he passes away. These 5 books of law are sometimes called the Pentateuch, which literally means 5 books. Remember, these first 5 books of the Bible go together. Let's say them together one more time. Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. There are 12 books of history, but we're going to divide them up into 3 sets of 3. Here they are: Joshua, Judges, Ruth, 1st and 2nd Samuel, 1st and 2nd Kings, 1st and 2nd Chronicles, Ezra, Nehemiah, Esther. As we try to memorize these books, notice that in each set there are always 2 books that start with the same letter or sound, and one that starts with a different letter. In set 1, it's the letter J, as in Joshua and Judges. In set 2, it's the sound K, as in Kings and Chronicles. In set 3, it's the letter E, as in Ezra and Esther. Let's talk about Joshua, Judges, Ruth. These 3 books go together. In fact, the book of Joshua picks up where Deuteronomy leaves off. And that's true of Judges, which picks up where Joshua leaves off. The book of Ruth occurs in the days of the Judges. Joshua, Judges, Ruth. 1st and 2nd Samuel, 1st and 2nd Kings, 1st and 2nd Chronicles. As you try and memorize this second set, I want you to drop the 1st and 2nd part. Just say this: Samuel, Kings, Chronicles. Again, Samuel, Kings, Chronicles. I just want you to focus on the name of the books, remembering that each one is divided into 2 parts. Now, originally, when these books were written in Hebrew, they were each one book: Samuel, Kings, Chronicles. Hebrew is written without vowels, and so when the Old Testament was later translated into Greek, each book was too long to be included on a single scroll. So they were broken up into 2 books each: 1st and 2nd Samuel, 1st and 2nd Kings, 1st and 2nd Chronicles. Samuel became 1st Samuel and 2nd Samuel. Kings became 1st Kings and 2nd Kings. Chronicles became 1st Chronicles and 2nd Chronicles. If you've never studied 1st and 2nd Samuel, then you're really in for a treat. It's about King David. It records his fight with the Philistine giant Goliath. Throughout Samuel, Kings, and Chronicles, David is presented as the ideal king that every other king of Israel is compared to. Samuel, Kings, Chronicles. One more time. Samuel, Kings, Chronicles. 1st and 2nd Samuel, 1st and 2nd Kings, 1st and 2nd Chronicles. The third set of 3 is Ezra, Nehemiah, Esther. And these 3 books also go together. Ezra and Nehemiah were friends. Their stories overlap. Ezra's name frequently appears in the book of Nehemiah. Ezra, Nehemiah, Esther. So far, you've learned the 5 books of law: Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. And you've also learned the 12 books of history: Joshua, Judges, Ruth, 1st and 2nd Samuel, 1st and 2nd Kings, 1st and 2nd Chronicles, Ezra, Nehemiah, Esther. You're doing great. Now, let's move on to the books of poetry. The 5 books of poetry are Job, Psalms, Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, Song of Solomon. Again, Job, Psalms, Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, Song of Solomon. These 5 books of poetry are really the wisdom literature of the ancient Hebrews, and so sometimes they are referred to as the books of wisdom. As a matter of fact, Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, and the Song of Solomon were all written by Solomon, the wisest man who ever lived. He was the son of King David. To help you memorize the names of these 5 books, I've got a great little song that I want you to sing with me. It's by a friend of mine, Linda Crump, who graciously has allowed me to include it in this course. I know you may not like the idea of singing a children's song, but believe me, it will help you to quickly learn the names of these books. It really does work. So let's sing together. The books of wisdom are a special part of the Bible: Job, Psalms, Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, Solomon's song. Job is all about patience, Psalms is all about praise. Proverbs are words to live by, Ecclesiastes man's ways. Song of Solomon teaches all about love. Job, Psalms, Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, Solomon's song. Sing this song a couple more times to familiarize yourself with the names of these 5 books of poetry, also known as the books of wisdom. The 5 major prophets are Isaiah, Jeremiah, Lamentations, Ezekiel, Daniel. Again, Isaiah, Jeremiah, Lamentations, Ezekiel, Daniel. These 5 books were written by 4 different men. Isaiah wrote Isaiah, Jeremiah wrote Jeremiah, Ezekiel wrote Ezekiel, and Daniel wrote Daniel. So, who wrote Lamentations? That would be Jeremiah. In the book that bears his name, he warned that the city of Jerusalem was going to be destroyed. When it was, he lamented its fall and wrote Lamentations. Isaiah, Jeremiah, Lamentations, Ezekiel, Daniel. The 12 minor prophets aren't minor because they're less important than the major prophets, just shorter. In fact, all 12 of these were written on the same scroll by Hebrew scribes. That's how short they are. In fact, the ancient Hebrews simply referred to these 12 books as the 12. I don't necessarily expect you to memorize these books immediately. It might take you a little while. And even when you do know them by heart, it's still hard to find a passage from one of these quickly because they're all so short. But when someone calls out a really funny-sounding Hebrew name along with a chapter or verse, then it's probably going to be one of these: Hosea, Joel, Amos, Obadiah, Jonah, Micah, Nahum, Habakkuk, Zephaniah, Haggai, Zechariah, Malachi. Now, don't get me wrong, you really should memorize these. And to help you do that, I've got another great little song by Linda Crump. It's even in a minor key. The books of the minor prophets: Hosea, Joel, Amos, Obadiah, Jonah, Micah, Nahum, Habakkuk, Zephaniah, Haggai, Zechariah, Malachi, the books of the minor prophets. I want to say a couple words about pronunciation. The book of Habakkuk kind of gets special treatment in the song, but it's simply pronounced Habakkuk. And Haggai is just a two-syllable word, not Haggai, Haggai. Let me tell you about the minor prophets. They may be short, but they really pack a punch. These prophets of God spoke powerful messages to God's people. At the beginning of this chapter, we said that there are 5 divisions in the Old Testament. How many books are in each division? 5, 12, 5, 5, 12. What are the names of the divisions? Law, history, poetry, major prophets, minor prophets. There are 5 books of law, 12 books of history, 5 books of poetry, 5 major prophets, and 12 minor prophets. Let's say them all together. Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, Joshua, Judges, Ruth, 1st and 2nd Samuel, 1st and 2nd Kings, 1st and 2nd Chronicles, Ezra, Nehemiah, Esther, Job, Psalms, Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, Song of Solomon, Isaiah, Jeremiah, Lamentations, Ezekiel, Daniel, Hosea, Joel, Amos, Obadiah, Jonah, Micah, Nahum, Habakkuk, Zephaniah, Haggai, Zechariah, Malachi. Congratulations! You've just learned all 39 books of the Old Testament. That's 2/3 of all the books in the Bible.